Synthetic human embryos have been created for the first time without eggs or sperm.
Well, that's good because we're sterilizing all the children. So I'm not exactly sure how else we're going to procreate. Don't let people bully you into submission. Fuck that. Fuck that. Thanks, Lizzo. I'm Bridget Phetasy, and this is your dumpster fire for the week of June 16th to June 23rd.
And the unicorns dance while the world burns, world burns. World burns.
Welcome back. We're happy to be here 3 weeks in a row. We're getting into a rhythm, folks. That's right. We are back. We're churning through the dumpsters. Things are taking off. It's going to be a hot, crazy summer.
Give me your attention, babe.
And we want you to join us in Phetasy.com. It's the best way to support this show. It's the best way to support the crazy little online rapscallions that you know and love. Go to Phetasy.com. You get the unedited version of Dumpster Fire every single day before it drops, which is now Sundays. So you'll get the unedited version on Saturdays. I've been working out with the ladies again. So we're getting our buns lifted for summer. And there's lots of awesome people in there. I've made some true friends, true lifelong friends through meeting people in that community. So join us there. And it's $5 a month. But if you subscribe for the annual, you get 2 months free. It's a great deal. Keep us independent so we can do and say whatever we want to do and say. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. We read your comments. We love them. Touch my bells and buttons and tell your friends. That's the most important thing. Tell your friends secretly.
Whisper to them.
Whisper to them at, your mom group or whatever.
I got the $1.9 trillion relief so far. Pay them more.
Whisper to the cool friend who you think might not cancel you for suggesting us.
I watched the show online. They're talking about the end of the world all the time. The best way to deal with this current climate is to mock all of this craziness. It's one of the most powerful tools we have as individuals in the face of communist insanity.
Starting it off with the current thing.
The current thing.
Rogan asked daughter Peter Hotez to come on the show and debate RFK Jr. about vaccines.
I'm going to ask you, audience, did this jump from being very online to like the mainstream, other than the mainstream writing articles about it, which I think they did? Did it kind of permeate the bubble
of the internet? I have no idea.
Certainly didn't touch Maggie.
It didn't touch me, but that doesn't say anything. When I went to look for stuff, there was a lot of stuff. It's a lot of people who like to get outraged about Rogan in general. And then, of course, vaccines are always a hot topic.
The short story of a long story is that Rogan had RFK Jr. on. For those of you who don't know who RFK Jr. is, to give you an idea of the absolute state of the DNC, he is polling higher than Biden in some instances, and he's kind of making a run for the Democratic. He's primarying the president, essentially, and he's doing a pretty good job, which shows you the state of this party, which is really not surprising given the people we have representing it.
This is a president that is committed to infrastructure. Yeah, and then on top of that, the dual law of the inflation bill.
I was laughing because I knew that this was going to blow people's brains, him being on in general. But RFK Jr. has had a lot of notoriously conspiratorial takes on vaccines, Wi-Fi, a lot of things that Alex Jones would probably agree with.
Yeah, he's kind of a kook.
Have the right to compel unwanted medical interventions on us.
I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay.
At this point, I trust JFK's brains more than RFK's brains, and I trust RFK's brains more than Biden's.
Please don't make me vote for Joe Biden. Please don't make me vote for Joe Biden.
So he came on and he talked a lot about vaccines. I'm not going to post any clips because even more treacherous and disturbing is the fact that anyone who's even posting a clip of this is getting demonetized, which is more terrible. Like the combination of the corporate and the government control with big tech being the police is effing terrified. We should all be terrified of that. And as much as I'm politically homeless, that is coming from the left.
You had Jacob Siegel on Walk-Ins Welcome this week. I just finished editing it yesterday.
This is the domestic use of military concepts and military technologies to protect us from threats. That includes, and I'm quoting, cognitive infrastructure, meaning
that is insane.
Meaning people's thoughts, the spaces online in which they form and share and disseminate those thoughts.
It is so deeply disturbing to listen to him talk about this.
And like he says, largely bipartisan.
Yeah.
You know, this is people who are just kind of letting this slide in both parties. But the control apparatus is primarily coming from the left, as well as the orders to kind of elevate certain people and make sure other people don't get heard at all. And you should definitely check out that Jacob Siegel Walk-Ins Welcome because he's brilliant. He wrote such a brilliant article for Tablet, and I had to have him on.
The article is called A Guide to Understanding the Hoax of the Century.
So good. But this also just goes to show how these institutions have shred their credibility, that they're just thirsting for some kind of actual public debate. And they're willing to have like a celebrity death match over vaccines on Rogan.
Let's get it on!
Just so they can get some semblance of actual conversation about this. And then these experts and scientists like Hotez will be like, it's beneath me to debate. We don't take this science into these forums because it legitimizes conspiracy theorists. They're like, we debate this stuff in scientific journals, which have all, as we know from this show, have all been captured by an ideology. But even more importantly than that, and people have pointed this out on Twitter, I think it was Leighton Woodhouse, actually, who's also been on the podcast. He was like, the same people who are doing TikTok dances and using social media to push all of these vaccines and try and bully people into it, not to mention the president telling everybody that they were going to die if they didn't get it, not to mention...
Or kill people, right?
Kill people, both. Remember, he was like, it's going to be the winter of death. You're all going to die.
We are looking at a winter of severe illness and death.
Game over, man. It's game over.
The pandemic of the unvaccinated, all of these things, telling people they couldn't have a job if they didn't get vaccinated. There was no debate over this. People had questions. Nobody answered them. And now you're mad that Rogan wants to host two people to talk about it? It's bananas.
Yeah, and you were silenced if you asked any questions or had any pushback at all.
Just right now, when I was sitting down to do this, Robbie Suave, who's also been on our podcast, he was talking about how the lab leak theory is now, it's like basically come out as true. Not only that, it was funded by American taxpayers and likely with the research behind Fauci. So this, you couldn't even write this conspiracy. And anyone who even brought this up was demonetized, silenced, and kicked off social media. It is, you wonder why people have no trust in any of these institutions. You have not admitted a single thing that you got wrong. So in terms of extraordinary bad takes and getting things wrong, you need to take extraordinary measures to restore trust. And nobody's doing that. You haven't even admitted you were wrong. There was that one article we were making fun of that's like, let's just move on and not have these like uncomfortable conversations.
And let's be clear, I'm not anti-vax. I believe in vaccines.
We're not that's the other thing. You have to predicate anyone defending people asking questions with, and just to be clear, I'm not anti-vax. We shouldn't have to state that we're not these things in order to ask legitimate questions.
That's a question. I'm asking questions then.
You're not some kind of fascist for asking questions. Don't let them convince you that that's true.
No, No, I reject the premise of this.
Stop accepting the labels. People label me right wing. People label me all kinds of things. Stop accepting that is true. You know what you are. Just because they're saying you're something does not mean that it's true for asking a question. And then Elon stuck his dick in it in Twitter and everybody was getting mad because Elon was like, yes, let's see the debate. People want answers.
You need to be brave enough to ask questions.
Mainstream media has absolutely lost all credibility and they can't handle it. They're trying to control these scientists who were dancing in the streets after they were like, it's a pandemic of racism. You lost your credibility and you think that it's owed to you because you're a scientist. And by the way, I believe in science. I believe in vaccines. I believe that they've saved millions of lives. I'm not talking necessarily about COVID, vaccines in general. I believe that the scientific method is very important, although a lot of these institutions have been captured by ideology, and that is undeniable. So don't let people bully you into submission. Fuck that. Fuck that.
Then we have these fucking guys.
This fucking guy.
But they already have their own category.
Yeah, they deserve their own category because they're royalty.
The making of a eunuch and eunuch maker.
Ugh.
Spotify exec calls Harry and Meghan fucking grifters after they discontinue Meghan's podcast.
Okay, her podcast was horrible. It's not as easy as it looks, folks. And also, no one can relate to you. You're the most unrelatable person I've ever heard of. So she was actually having her audio producers call and do the interview, and then she would record the questions and cut them in. That is the most princess shit I've ever heard. You can't be bothered to show up for your podcast interview and you have somebody else do it in your stead? You are a princess. Why did you act like you weren't royalty? Also, you guys don't like working. You're royals. You like waving and shaking hands. You're good at that, but it takes work to make content. You can't just phone it in this climate. It's insanely competitive. There's a million different podcasts and people who are vying for other people's attention. And you think just because of who you are, you can swoop in and have a shitty podcast that no one can identify with. It's funny that this Spotify executive, it sounds like he was drunk at a bar and was like, these grifters. Although I think he did say, someone get me drunk and I'll tell this story.
He did. He said this on his podcast. He has his own podcast. So he was like, he called them grifters on his podcast. And then he was like, someone get me drunk and have me tell the story about talking to Harry on a Zoom call about podcast content. Cause that's my best story ever. I'm like, I want to hear that story. But
yeah, we all want to hear that story. I mean, South Park killed them. We all watched a public execution when South Park took them down. They're never going to be the same. They will never recover from that. Their legacy is now that South Park. You can tell how shitty these people are that even Americans don't like them. The country that revered Tiger King thinks these guys are pieces of shit. We haven't hated anybody this much since King George. In honor of the 4th of July, I think we should all hate on the royals a little bit more. They should know their content lane. It's not podcasts. It's not Netflix. It's the tabloid rack in the grocery store where the royals belong.
What matters is what we have on the inside.
Hello?
Get wrecked, big tech.
Get wrecked, big tech.
Synthetic human embryos have been created for the first time without eggs or sperm.
Well, that's good because we're sterilizing all the children. So I'm not exactly sure how else we're going to procreate. And only female scientists are going to be allowed to destroy them. This is the Impossible Burger of embryos.
Yeah, it was made of like embryonic stem cells.
They're not allowed because of ethics to be put in humans, so they can't really do much with them. I feel like they're like, we're not allowed ethically to put these in humans. Instead, we're putting them in growth sacs to create our army of synthetics. It really is like all of the science fiction books and movies. Well, now all these dudes can have babies with their sex robot.
What's going on there?
Baby's going on in there.
What the fuck? And they can just create their little trad synthetic wife.
Then we have everything is racist. American Medical Association now says that BMI is racist.
Thanks, Lizzo. Now let's check the weather with Susana Almeida.
Dos estaciones con mala calidad del aire. Esto es entre la Quepaque Rodolfo con 102 y Loma Dorada con 105.
Thanks, Susanna. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, touch my bells and buttons. Tell all of your friends about us. And subscribe to Phetasy.com and join our community of ragtag insane people who are just trying to laugh while the word burns. Okay.
What is happening? If you're attracted to women, you might be a gynosexual.
This is just making me hungry for Euros. What kind of word is this? This is in men's health. How far have we fallen? This is just being a dude.
This is one of the most ridiculous articles I've ever read in my entire life, because they're like, oh, if you're attracted to women, you might be a gynosexual. Then it goes on to be like, a gynosexual person can be attracted to feminine women, men, and or non-binary people.
They're turning the frogs gay.
Ridiculous.
This is just nonsense. This is the kind of nonsense that you have in late stage capitalism. When people need to justify their job and existence and they make up words like this to talk about, like, you're a journalist. Go do something with your journalism. Go find a sad story that you can report on. Go deal with qualified immunity or where the garbage is going.
The city used its mob connections to obtain a rocket and launch the garbage into outer space.
Or literally go clean up a beach. Men are just reading this and they're like, something, something, something. It's all pink on the inside.
Siri, please take my life. AI-powered electric shoes help people walk at the speed of running.
These forward moonwalking motherfuckers. These are just motorized walkways for your feet. This is just like for lazy people who don't want to seem lazy.
They look kind of awesome, though.
They do. I want them 100%. Like walking, but hate the speed. Are you a lazy piece of shit, but want to convince people you're not?
They're AI powered. So does that mean they're hackable?
There was really funny on Twitter. The guy was like, when my AI shoes get hacked or whatever. And it was a guy walking into the ocean.
Yeah, someone in the comments. That was really funny.
Can we get something a little more cool in the future? I thought we were going to get hoverboards. This is like a Segway for your feet. We all know how the guy who took over Segway died.
Dumpster diving.
What's next in the dumpster? Oh, wait. I was almost going to throw. I wanted more noise.
Woman divorced her dying husband because he was wallowing in self-pity. She's since become a life coach.
And left the country very conveniently.
You haven't thought of the smell, you bitch!
I read this article and I'm a men's rights activist now. That's what happened. I understand the rage and I think women should get back in the kitchen. No, this was like the most they just let this woman talk and she's the most non-self-aware narcissist
in the world. It was like, oh, you know, some people when they're dying, they wallow in self-pity and some people are checking on everyone else around them. He was one of the people who wallowed in self-pity. Like nobody was checking on me. Nobody was checking on how I was doing. None of the doctors.
She's like the equivalent of a dude who's saying, we're pregnant. He doesn't have cancer. We have cancer.
What do you mean we? Nintendo? No, we as in us. Us. Are you talking about us?
You need to feel sorry for me too and give me sympathy. There was a picture of her giving her life coach speech or whatever, and it said the 3 M's of success. And I'm like, what are those? Me. Ever had your wife kick you in your cancer-ridden balls? The doctors went to go remove his cancer-ridden balls, but they realized his wife took them years ago.
And then we just have a weird one. Elizabeth Hurley stars in erotic film written and directed by her 21-year-old son.
This is Freudian. There's something Freudian about this. There's a funny picture of the two of them, and I'm pretty sure this picture was taken right after he blinded himself. We're going for the high joke.
That's a really high joke. Let us know in the comments if you get that joke.
If you get that joke, I want to test our audiences.
Your classical education.
She was busy making movies, and apparently he was busy getting his education from the adult film industry. This just seems like he watched a lot of that kind of stepmom porn.
Yeah.
Because it's about a woman getting seduced by a younger woman.
Yeah, she's like investigating the death of her friend, but she wears all these scantily clad outfits and then gets seduced by some other woman.
This is literally a porn. This is like every bad porn where a girl seduces her stepmom or whatever. I would take this to your therapist and sit down and ask him exactly what he thinks about that.
The therapist would be like, okay, there's a lot to unpack here.
Yeah.
Breaking Bridget. Sexual reassignment industry is predicted to reach over $3 billion by 2032.
You guys, how can people not see what a blatant money grab this is? This is insane. And 60% of the market or 61% of the market share is male to female. So there's a lot of dudes cutting their dicks off. Let's talk about that. I really want to know what's going on. I know we live in a culture that's been pretty hard on men, but guys, you don't need to cut your dick off to fit into society.
Now, some of you might think that this is a little crazy.
The chilling line, and there's a lot of chilling stuff about this. It was like a market report. So they're gross anyways, because they're just so clinical and something that is so not clinical. So there's this line. The goal of SRS is to change a person's physical sex characteristics to match their gender identity. Stated as a fact. This is pseudoscientific nonsense. The idea of a gender identity, this is as scientific as the idea of a soul. And you can debate that all you want. I don't think you should be making biological changes to perfectly healthy body parts on children because of some fantasy idea that is not proven or real. This is crazy. Mm-hmm. This is a death cult. This is a death cult. This is like people who believe in the rapture and then kill all their kids. This is the sterilization of all of these young people, even if they're 18 plus. My therapist is like, you should not be doing any of this shit until your brain is fully formed and you're 25. Mm-hmm. Like, you shouldn't be making these changes. Your brain is not fully formed.
You can't legally rent a car until you're 25.
It's so gross. And just the way they talk about this. As the need for transgender healthcare has been more widely recognized, more insurers have begun to include coverage for these treatments in their healthcare plans. This may make it simpler and cheaper for transgender people to get the care they require. Government funding can also be a significant factor in the market for sex reassignment surgery. Through publicly funded healthcare systems or other programs, the government of some nations pays for these procedures. This can make it more likely that those who require certain procedures can get them, regardless of their financial position. You realize they're convincing a whole population that taking out a healthy womb, a healthy penis, healthy boobs, this is healthcare. When in the history, this is eugenics. Like, this is a fucking scandal. When has a doctor ever gone, oh, these perfectly healthy body parts, let's remove them? When it's not like, oh, you have cancer. It is insanity. And it's a total money grab by all of these freaking medical institutions, insurance companies, governments are getting on board. Nonetheless, it is significant to remember that even with increased insurance coverage or government funding, access to these procedures may still be restricted in some nations. Good! More effort must be done to ensure that transgender people can get the health care they require to live healthy and productive lives, since many people still encounter legal, societal, or economic hurdles to receiving the treatment they require. Look, if you're an adult and you want to do these things and you feel that it will make your life better, I don't think a government should stand in the way of you being able to do this. I think you probably should wait until you're 25 to make these decisions, because we've spoken to many people on my podcast who have transitioned even after 19 and regret it. So don't think that this is going to solve all your problems if you're feeling like you're uncomfortable in your own body. Yeah, I was uncomfortable in my own body too. And I freaking drank myself into oblivion until I quit drinking. And I still had to deal with not being comfortable in my body. It's not just a magical fix.
And somehow the detransitioners are not getting the attention.
Of course they're not, because how can you not see that this is a fucking money grab? This is it's a huge $3 billion business. You're convincing people of this nonsense that gender identity is a thing. Like, it undermines the rights of women, the rights of gay people. It undermines so many basic ideas that biological sex isn't real.
Boys have a penis, girls have a vagina.
Thanks for the tip.
Therefore, you can just swap out your body parts. They don't talk about go look at a Reddit forum of men who have done this and live with regret and have nightmares about it. It's some of the most disturbing shit you'll ever read.
And we're not given the proper information about long-term consequences and side effects and what could legitimately happen to their bodies.
And you have a whole institution of psychologists and medical doctors who can't say, hey, maybe you should pause, maybe you'll grow out of this, because you'll maybe lose your license. Like this, honestly, it's some of the most sinister I've ever seen in my life. It breaks every week. It breaks me. And it's fucking everywhere. How is this everywhere?
In 10 years, there's going to be so much fallout from this.
Maybe.
Just no.
Or maybe I'll be in prison for being some kind of thought criminal. I'm glad people are pushing back against it. I don't think parents should be able to make the decision for their kid to do this. Because I don't trust these narcissistic Instagram moms either.
Yeah.
Because now there's a whole culture of being a parent of one of these kids.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, Marcus, you got about two options right now. You can be a boy trapped in a girl's body, or you can be a boy trapped in his own room for the next year.
It's just so f***ed. I don't trust any of these people. I feel so bad for these kids. I feel so bad for these kids. And I totally have sympathy for parents because you don't know what to do. There's nobody who can really tell you what to do. Again, interviewed Carol Markowitz, and she's like, you basically have to move or pull your kid out of the school or get them offline. I mean, it's so kids are so impressionable. It is dark.
Yeah.
It is dark. And they're sterilizing them.
Yeah. This is for the rest of their lives.
Yeah. There's no pausing puberty. If by pausing you mean you're never going to have an orgasm and you're never going to have children biologically, maybe you can have a freaking synthetic embryo in a growth sac. It's, I can't. I understand Nazi Germany.
What?
Like, I understand how so many people can just go along with something insane and criminal and upsetting and disgusting because
it's spun the right way.
It's crazy by a government and by technology and the media. It's fucking insane. I mean, if this shit gets me banned, I don't care. I will go down swinging.
Phetasy News.
All right. Join us at Phetasy.com. You get the unedited version of Dumpster Fire every Saturday before we launch on Sundays now, our new day. Tell your friends, spend your Sunday the right way with your pals here at Dumpster Fire. We will be having Sam, those of you who miss her, patching in with some conspiracy theories. She's still in the writer's room. She's still participating, so she will be getting on that. And if you want to keep up with everything that we're doing every week, we launch our newsletter. We're back doing that. Go to bridgetphetasy.substack.com. It's free. It's easy way to keep up with like all the people that I just mentioned on Walk-Ins Welcome, which is an amazing podcast, if I do say so myself. You can see what we're doing there. You can listen to Factory Settings with Jaron and I, where we have basically just a conversation every week about one topic, and also Letters from the Politically Homeless. So it's all in one nice, easy to read package with a little message from yours truly. Thank you to Dave Yates, Sammy Flaps and Folds, Ben Howe, and Better Phetasy for writing, editing, research, and just generally having the most hilarious chat in the entire world and writer's room. Thank you, Maggie.
Thank you, Bridget.
For all of the hard work, editing, and doing everything. Thank you to our audience, you supporters and commentators. We love you and appreciate you, and we would be nothing without you. And we are like the little show that could, and we really enjoy doing this. I need to do it. This is my therapy. Thank you, Zen Pro Audio. This is where we get all of our audio equipment. If you need audio equipment, support a small business. We love Zen Pro Audio. If you want to sponsor us, reach out, weeklydumpsterfire@gmail.com. We are always looking for sponsors, and especially if you're a small business, we love working with you. And now the internet is glorious.
Manicure, and you don't need no makeup. Original cute body make a man mad. On your face and make man mad up. Girl, your lipstick. On your face and make man mad up. When you're nice and you don't get sick. Mix your body up to the big tight and it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it.
This has been your Dumpster Fire for the week of June 16th to June 23rd. I'm Bridget Phetasy. Now make me